Hi, and welcome to the Designing Effective Grading Rubrics tutorial. This tutorial will define and explain grading rubrics, outline the 5 steps to designing a rubric, and provide samples of grading rubrics both in assignment descriptions and built within Canvas. A rubric is an evaluation tool that identifies criteria relevant to an assignment and describes levels of performance expectations for the assignment or other student work. Grading rubrics communicate expectations and help assess the extent to which students are achieving developmental learning outcomes. There are many types of rubrics, and most are organized into a table for ease of communication and the purpose of building them into Canvas. Rubrics are beneficial to both the instructors and the students for the following reasons. Ease of communication. In Canvas, a rubric can be integrated with a variety of assessments, such as assignments, discussions, presentations, and group projects. Your students will be able to quickly access a detailed explanation as to why they received the grade they did and how to improve for the next assignment. They reduce your grading workload. Instructors can use the rubric to convey the assessment standards to students and also reduce the workload in grading. You'll be doing far less typing if you use a rubric. And as you know, many of the comments you provide are repetitive. Rubrics remove the monotony of repeating yourself. They help ensure that the assignments are evaluated fairly and consistently. Rubrics also provide students with clear learning goals, specific requirements, and acceptable performance standards for each assignment. This means that they help students become more aware and better able to efficiently evaluate their own work. When the assignments are scored with the rubric, students can easily identify and understand what area needs further effort in order to meet the performance standard. They also cut down on the number of emails that you will receive asking you to clarify the expectations of an assignment. At its core, a successful rubric involves 3 important components. A rubric description. The rubric description provides information to students about what aspects of an assignment or project will be assessed and how they will be assessed. Criteria. Criteria, often called dimensions, identify the characteristics or components of the task to be rated. For example, a rubric for a presentation could include content, organization, style, communication, use of visual aid, and presentation skills. A rubric for a written assignment or research paper could include argument, evidence, counter-evidence, sources, and citations. Levels of achievement. Levels of achievement are often called scale. Scale uses labels to describe how well or poorly a task has been performed by students. For example, you can use excellent, good, needs improvement, and poor, or sophisticated, competent, and not yet competent to set up the assignment scale. Designing grading rubrics comes down to 5 steps. 1. Define the purpose of the assignment or assessment for which you are creating a rubric. 2. Define the criteria. 3. Design the rating scale. 4. Write descriptions for each level of the rating scale. And 5. Create your rubric. Let's look at each step in more depth. Our first step is to define the purpose of the assignment. Consider the following questions as you do so. What exactly is the assigned task? Does it break down into a variety of different tasks? Are these tasks equally important? What are the learning objectives for this assignment or task? What do you want students to demonstrate in their completed assignments and performances? What might an exemplary student product performance look like? How might you describe an acceptable student product or performance? How might you describe work that falls below expectations? What kind of feedback do you want to give students on their work or performance? Do you want to give them detailed feedback on a variety of criteria? Do you want to give them specific feedback that will help them improve their future work? Our next step is to define the criteria. In doing so, first ask yourself, what knowledge and skills are required for the assignment or assessment? Make a list of these, group and label them, and eliminate any that are not critical. The list should contain no more than 6 to 7 criteria, but it need not include that many. To define the criteria, you may want to review the learning objectives for the course, the assignment prompt, existing grading checklists, comments on previous work, past examples of student work, and/or discuss the criteria with colleagues. After drafting some criteria, consider its effectiveness. Can they be observed and measured? Are they important and essential? Are they distinct from other criteria? And finally, revise the criteria as needed. Consider how you will weight them relative to each other. Next comes our easiest step, designing the rating scale. Overall, most rating scales include 3 to 5 levels: excellent, good, adequate, inadequate, fail, etc. Please use the descriptive words with which you are most comfortable, or not at all. Perhaps you only want to use numbers and not labels, or maybe grade designations of A, B, C, D, or F. Whatever you prefer works for us. Additionally, you may order your rubric from lowest to highest or highest to lowest. It is your rubric after all. As our last step, you'll write descriptions for each level of the rating scale you came up with. You may do this for each particular criterion of the rubric or provide information in a more holistic fashion. These descriptions help students understand your expectations. Well-written descriptions describe observable and measurable behavior, parallel language across the scale, indicate the degree to which the standards are met, and allow the rubric to be used with all assignments for which the rubric was created. You're now ready to create your rubric. Using your module blueprint, include the rubric under the grading criteria heading within the assignment description. Your design team will use that rubric to build the actual rubric in the assignment within Canvas, so you merely need to click through the criteria to assign grades, thus streamlining the grading process. And again, you need only design one standard rubric for the assignment, and we can link the same rubric across the many assignments of the same type. For example, you can create a written assignment rubric, and we can link it to all written assignments in the course. Remember that the rubric you designed during the development of your course is not set in stone. You should be prepared to revise it after its first use. As you teach, consider its effectiveness and if anything is missing. Ask your students if anything was unclear about the rubric, and reach out to your instructional designer for tips and suggestions on how to improve it. Let's now look at some samples of rubrics from various online learning courses. Here is a grading rubric for a 100-point written assignment that requires content, analysis, textual evidence, citations, and grammar and mechanics. As you can see, it has 5 criteria, the rows, and a scale of up to 6 ratings, the columns. Not all criteria require 6 ratings, though. Content and analysis is worth the most points, and therefore this subject matter expert has decided to make sure the ratings and description provide opportunity to give more detailed feedback, closer to an A, B, C, and D level point scale. Completeness, the last criteria at the bottom, only has 3 ratings. This is absolutely fine to do with your own rubric. This rubric is a good example of how to incorporate many criteria and ratings into one rubric. Here is an example of a rubric used for a discussion assignment that requires 4 replies. As you can see, the first 2 discussion replies are evaluated on the same criteria, so they're lumped together in this rubric. The second 2 are as well. While the rubric looks like this in the assignment, when it's actually built within Canvas, each reply will have its own row and each criterion are given their own cell that you simply select to give the student a grade. Please note that the 4th row in this image is missing due to space constraints. The longer descriptions in the first column for each reply are hidden and accessed via a link. The rest of the descriptions are included in the ratings cells. You simply click on the cell and the rubric will populate the score on the right. There is also an option to adjust the score on the right if needed. Discussion rubrics are very handy for demonstrating to students what they should be doing with each reply that they make to the discussion. Finally, here are sample rubrics built within Canvas for a group project that has multiple parts. As a group, the students submit an essay, meeting minutes, and PowerPoint, the largest rubric on the left. Then each student was also graded on individual items that they submitted. So those parts of the assignment were created as their own individual assignments in Canvas, with each having its own smaller rubric that outlines the project part's expectations, the 3 smaller rubrics on the right. As you can see, rubrics need not be massive and complex. You can break them down to very simple criteria and ratings, and they're still very helpful in demonstrating assignment expectations. This concludes this tutorial on grading rubrics. Remember that as you work on creating rubrics for your own online course, your instructional designer is here to help with every step. Please do not hesitate to reach out for help or clarification. They have seen and worked with many grading rubrics and are here to support you.